we want to build the next generation of individuals that cherish the planet and that have a connection to planet and are spiritually aligned with being outdoors in mud and wind and water and rain and bird sounds. So how do we build playgrounds that focus around that set of ideas?
Hi, this is Rusty Keeler, and you're listening to the Play Nature Podcast, where we talk about play, nature, playing in nature, and the nature of play. I'm glad you're here. Let's have a listen. Claude.
Hello, Rusty.
Hello, Claude.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm going after my Claude lookalike look here with my white
Or is it,
hair.
am I going after the Rusty lookalike?
I know, it's like, we don't know. We'll let the listeners decide who
Okay.
can't see. But yes, so great to be here with you. And Claude, our paths have crossed for many years in the play world, and kind of the world of kind of living well or artistic living and community. And I look up to you, to somebody who, lives a creative life that is true to yourself and your creativity and connecting to the community and society and trying to do beautiful, good things in the world. And I always learn so much from you and love being around you and when we're together. And so I'm really excited to share you with listeners.
Well, the feeling is mutual, Rusty.
The Claude Stephens experience here. So why don't I read your bio and then we can dive into some conversation here.
Okay.
So you call yourself a playcologist.
So my academic background is in evolutionary biology and with a focus in ecology. And so I work at Bernheim Forest and Arboretum, and the focus of Bernheim is connecting people to nature. So I am first and foremost an ecologist that then later in life became interested in play for that evolutionary part of that evolutionary biology. And we could get into that or not.
Yeah.
But so Playcologist is just a mashup of play and ecologist. And
Yes.
that extends over to our 17-acre playground, which we call Playcosystem, which is a mashup of play and ecosystem. So,
Yes. Love it. Love it. Okay, so playcologist in our minds here. Claude Stephens is the director of Bernheim Forest and Arboretum's Children at Play Network, a regional effort to eliminate barriers to free play in nature. His academic background in evolutionary ecology informs the way he thinks about systems change, such as how we provision for children's play. The Children at Play Network team designs play environments, trains play facilitators, and nurtures regional support networks engaged in the work of valuing free play in nature. So people could understand why Claude and I might like each other. That's up our alley. And yeah, so there's so much, and you bring so much to this the movement of play, supporting play and children in nature. And I'm looking forward to talking with you about, adults' role, what play is, why children and nature, working with communities, and how adult intervention to kind of support play and childhood, and where childhood and play is today, and what we can do to support it. But maybe first just back up kind of the evolutionary lens of play itself in our past as humans, and then how it connects to where we're at, and then do we need to support
Well, I
this?
guess one of the skill sets of anyone studying evolutionary processes is to understand scales of time a little bit differently than most of us think about time. So if you think a long time is 100 years or 200 years, then to an evolutionarily focused individual, that amount of time doesn't mean a whole lot. And yet lots of things happen in those time frames. But from a species perspective, so let's take a look at us as a species,
Mm-hmm.
Homo sapien. And we're not the first in the genus Homo. There are Homo species that precede us, and those species inform how we are as a species. And our species has been here, depending on who you talk about, for 350,000 years. So, in that amount of time, an organism changes, and what we do, and how we exist, and what we think about, and how we explore and use the landscape, all of that changes. Our play mind is a very old mind. It's way older than 100 years or 200 years. Some of the way I think about this is inspired by Peter Gray, who's an evolutionary psychologist. So thinks about things a little bit differently, but we are a playing individual, a species. We call ourselves Homo sapien, which means wise man. That was picked by Linnaeus, I think probably inappropriately. I don't know that we are very wise. I would
Mm-hmm.
rather think that we are playing man or Homo ludo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we come from play, and then lots of things started changing 10,000 years ago with the advent of agriculture. I think of agriculture as a big kind of human mistake. You can trace many of the ills that we deal with in the modern world that track back to agriculture. Agriculture is when we stayed in one place. Agriculture is when we started building city states, and city states led to war. And resource use started changing. We started looking at the planet as not a place that we move around on and gather and hunt from, but a place that we start changing the landscape in order to alter it so that we can grow crops and
Mm-hmm.
food. And then a whole bunch falls out of that,
Mm-hmm.
including the
This is
Industrial
ours.
Revolution,
Mm-hmm.
which is when we started thinking differently about education. We started thinking about education as a industrial process where we move an individual from point A to point B in the system and prepare them to support the industries. Some of those industries then shifted over and started commodifying play and building play equipment that's manufactured by companies, and then there's litigation and lawsuit. I mean, all kinds of things fall from that. And so
Mm-hmm.
my evolutionary mind is looking at how did we get to a point in our evolution where we build a kind of a playground that looks all the same. Go anywhere around the United States, and 90% of the playgrounds are pretty much exactly alike except for placement and color.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? How did we get to that point? And if you understand how we got to that point, you can use that information to deconstruct that to get to a different point. What different point do we get to? And in my mind, that's a point that cherishes the natural world more than most of our playgrounds cherish the natural world today. So that's a perfect place for someone who works in a forest and an arboretum with a mission of connecting people to nature. So we got at play, not because we're play people, but because we want to build the next generation of individuals that cherish the planet and that have a connection to planet and are spiritually aligned with being outdoors in mud and wind and water and rain and bird sounds. So, how do we build playgrounds that focus around that set of ideas and not around the set of ideas that some of the more traditional, we often talk about traditional playgrounds. I think the playgrounds that we're designing that are nature focused, those are traditional playgrounds.
Yes,
And that
yes.
the playgrounds that we all think of as the dominant paradigm, those are not traditional at all. Those are new, those are manufactured playgrounds. So I am at odds with the playground manufacturing industry, which I call big play, and I welcome them into the conversation. I don't dislike those people or what they're building, but I think that there's room for a conversation between that industry, big play, and nature play.
Yes, yeah. I remember having the experience, some of my aha moments when I was designing play equipment in the Netherlands, and this was for the European market. And at that stage, I loved being a designer. I loved play, learning about play, designing for play, and I was kind of like la 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 doing my thing. But the more I spent time like in the factory, the more I spent like in natural play settings in Europe, the more in one of a kind places or community built places, I suddenly looked at the playground factory, the industrialized factory, as like, wait a second, are we designing for play? Or are we just designing like metal thing? We have the tools to bend metal in this way or mold plastic in that way. And suddenly it felt like, wait, children play in all different ways with all different things. We're kind of, because this company specializes in metal and plastic and powder coating and all that kind of stuff, we're kind of just selling this stuff. And really, how do you step back and think, okay, what is play on a deep level? How do you support the play? How do you connect kids then to the land where they live, nature where they live? That has nothing. It doesn't have anything to do with the industrialized process.
I agree. And I don't think most play happens on playgrounds. I mean, playgrounds are wonderful places for play, but children play everywhere,
Yeah.
especially if you break out of the United States and you think globally. Um, and I'd love to bring up the documentary work of David Meeks and Renata Mierles in Brazil, if that's an appropriate thing to do. But
Yes.
children are really good at finding those interstitial spaces where they are out of direct supervision of adults. If it's in a house, they know where they can go in the house, where they can get away with things that parents may not allow because they're being quiet down in a corner of the basement or something like that. If they're outside, they figure the corners of the yards where the trees may not, may grow up weedy and they can develop a little fort or hiding spot. If it's at the community level, it might be the one vacant lot in the neighborhood. If it's in the woods, it's that corner back somewhere in the woods where nobody's watching or checking to see what they're building. And I wish
Mm-hmm.
more of that play was embraced culturally. So that at the home level, the community level, the ecosystem level.
Yeah, like those are the hot spots. Those are, yeah, the places that might be more forgotten by adults. Like, so the adults who don't care about these places, the little backwoods, the scrubby area, the vacant lot. And so it's like, oh, well, kids have freedom,
Yeah.
or they did, or certain communities they do, or, I mean, certainly my childhood, we roamed fields and had our bikes and we went where we wanted to go, and certainly had those scrubby
Yeah.
places that no one else cared about.
And the play provisioning in those interstitial spaces is provided by the children themselves. It isn't built by big people. They find
Yeah,
scraps of what I remember as a kid building tree houses. And if we found a board that was more than a foot long and more than 4 inches wide, bingo, we can use that piece of
that's
wood,
right. That's right.
Um, and I remember when I was growing up, there was a lot of construction going on, and so there were scrap lumber piles, and where the workmen had tossed all their bent nails. A bent nail was just an opportunity to bang it straight again and then use
Ah,
it. It was as much fun to get the nail straight as it was
yeah,
to use it. And we built all
yeah,
kinds of things out of
yeah.
nothing.
Yes, yes. I just saw an article written by, I don't know, it was a New York Times opinion person, and they were talking about watching again as an adult with their child the movie Stand by Me. It was a Stephen King short story that wasn't a horrific, it wasn't like a horror movie, it was more autobiographical about his life. But the story is like four boys, best friends, going out on a camping thing. They have a big mission that they're going on, but what struck what the message of the story was like, wait, they had that kind of freedom, and the daughter was asking the writer, like, did you have that kind of freedom just to be out and your parents didn't know where you were and you were just doing things and kind of on the edge and that kind of freedom. And I remember that kind of freedom, but I know that for many kids they don't have that kind of they're not pulling boards out as much and nails
Right.
and building their own kinds of things. So it was almost like, and even that idea of like Stranger Things, the movie Stranger Things, especially with like what season one when the kids are all on bikes and everything. And I heard people saying the stranger thing isn't that there's some big monsters around; it's that these kids have this freedom and they're riding their bikes through town with no adult supervision.
Yeah, the adults are like minor characters, and they were in my life too, and they could be again. But
Mm-hmm.
that's societal work. That's systematic work, and I'm interested in that aspect of play work as well. I believe that play work done well can address systemic challenges, and it can pull communities together, and it can build bridges between organizations, and it can address equality. And there's all kinds of work for play people that is play adjacent that brings us into communication with larger structural issues of communities.
Yes, you've been working for many years on like a long-term project, that kind of an evolutionary project of play, network of play and community. Systems change.
Yes, at there's lots of places that have really amazing playgrounds. What nobody owns the market on an amazing playground because yeah, that one's amazing. So is that one. Here's
Yeah.
one I don't even know about that's even more amazing than anything I've ever seen before. So what needs to happen is to build relationships between all of those efforts so that those people doing amazing things support people that may only have. We worked on a playground here in Louisville for Catholic Charities, and they moved into an existing building. And they had a little area that's no bigger than a large room in a house, and it was asphalt covered. But
Yes.
that it was off the doors of their early childhood support room for the work that they were doing. And so volunteer support appeared to pull up the asphalt, put down soil and mulch, bring in trees and rocks, and in an area no bigger than a room, it feels very different than an asphalt parking lot. It feels like a place
Yes.
you actually want to sit in and kind of hang
Yes.
out for a while and watch kids or be a child and play. So
Yeah.
that's very important work because they serve immigrant populations, children coming from who knows where with who knows what their play was like.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do we give them? An asphalt parking lot, or do we try to upgrade that?
Yeah.
And all of that work happens because people doing one thing can support people that don't have the resources to do much of anything at all.
Hmm.
So build those connections, build those bridges between groups of people. And that's the real work, to build relationships that are durable and ultimately helpful.
Hmm. Yes, because you've been branching out for years with different organizations and different communities and neighborhoods to not to push agendas, but to kind of meld agendas, maybe, or to bring in play or support the missions that other groups are doing, but with your interest of in play and community.
Yes, and building those relationships takes thoughtful work. So one thing that we're very careful about doing is we don't go to an organization and say, "Hey, look at us. We've got the answer to your problem. Let us show you how to build a natural playground here."
Yeah, yeah.
What we do is we go and we say, "Hey, here's who we are, and we like what you're doing. Would you like to come out and play at Bernheim? And then let's talk about how we might be helpful. You tell us what you need, and if you even want a relationship at all. And if you do want the relationship, tell us how we can help, as opposed to here's the answer to your problem." We've built some really amazing, durable relationships by being authentic about wanting to be in relationship with another group of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And certainly organizations are going to know right away, like, are they, is this group pushing something on me? Do they think they have the answers, or do we genuinely, does this, do Claude and company genuinely care or share goals or respect and honor the work that's already happening, and yeah, how to have a relationship? Because I mean, in some ways, it feels like we've gotten to a place, society wise, where everyone's just like scrambling, doing their own thing, siloed here and there, and there could be the feeling that everyone's just doing their best and busy, and yet if children's mental health, and they're not getting the chance to have the kind of free play, or there's pressure at school or in neighborhoods, it just kind of, we could just keep going in our individual silos more and more, and then what's going to happen? But it takes like this work of like, wait, we got to to stop that, the opposite of turn it around. And I feel like the community of like, who are the people in the community who share values, who can you connect with?
Yeah.
But it is stepping out.
That analogy is also, or a similar thing is happening in the ecological world. So, conservation work of the past century was to purchase land and protect it.
Okay.
And individuals do that, and private nonprofits do that, and governments do that. But it's the work of like purchasing land and then working with that land to conserve it, preserve it, restore it, whatever is the appropriate action. The conservation work of this and the next century, because there's not much of that land left to buy.
Hmm.
There's not a lot of natural areas out there in large amounts that someone could purchase and then start to preserve it. So the conservation work of the future will be to figure out a way to connect those places. So protect places was past work, connect places is future
Ah,
work. And
okay.
the same thing just exists for, I think, the play community. Build places for play is the work that many of us are still in. Connect places for play is the work of the future, so that every child has a place outside where they feel free and safe and empowered and joyful. Which, by the way, that's a paraphrase of the vision of the Children at Play Network, which is the play network at Bernheim, where I work, is to every child has a place. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter who you are. There should be a place outdoors where you can experience free play. And that's another conversation, but I bet that's already been explored in your podcast, the kind of difference between free play and directed play. We don't need to get into that, but we want every child to have a place where they decide how to use a natural area to play the way they want to play.
Yes. So at Bernheim, you've created like a high level model of rootsy play, connection to nature. And it sound like you said like first step is inviting some people in or organizations in and saying, hey, check this out. And I know when I was there, the Playco system, you're once taken by the scale of it, some of the key, there's some big artistic wow features, but you're also I was taken by, like, at the same time, it feeling simple. There's simplicity to things where people might get wowed by some of the big stuff, but at the same time, they might get wowed by, like, oh, these logs and stumps, and the way you have some that are big and that you can climb on or sit on, or loose ones, and you're seeing what kids are doing, or organizations who come to visit might see other kids playing in ways like, oh, they're letting them just roll logs around or be risky, and I think people would walk away with feeling like, oh, we could do some of this stuff. It feels like,
Absolutely.
yeah, right? It's got both
We
of
don't
that.
even think we're experts in it. Bernheim is a fairly large organization. It's large in just geographic size. So as a private organization, we own and protect about 18,000 acres. That's big.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I don't know of another private institution that has that much acreage. So we build a 17-acre playground, and that doesn't feel like anything to us. We've got way more than that to play with. But that's a big playground. That's more land than a lot of organizations even own. And
Oh,
so,
yes, for
so
sure.
our scale is skewed. And when an organization like Bernheim builds a place like Playco, the way that most typically happens is you hire someone to do it. You hire a landscape design company, you hire Rusty Keeler, you hire, someone who has done these before to do it. And they come in and they design it. They talk with you, but they design it and they figure out all the problems, and it kind of gets all built at once. And then it all opens at once. And that team of people goes away, and with them goes all the knowledge of how this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And when we built our playground, we looked at that as an option. And everyone we talked to was designing playgrounds that looked like a lot of other very nice playgrounds. Nothing wrong with them at all. But they didn't feel Bernheim. They didn't feel like what
Mm-hmm.
we were thinking we might want. They didn't feel messy enough. They didn't feel like they had loose parts. It felt like they were being designed for the adult gaze. Like, I want this to look really nice and pretty and focused on the curve of the sidewalk and we thought, well, that's not really what we're going for. What we're going for is to build an environment for the child's gaze, that they look at it and they go, oh, I get this place. Or at least they
Mm-hmm.
could potentially get that place. It might take a little help because it doesn't look like their typical playground. So at first they don't know what to do with it. But um, so we jumped in and did it ourselves. And as a result of that, we had to, out of necessity, understand that we were going to make a bunch of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as we were done with the first build out, we knew we were going to have some things that were wrong, some things that were right, and a whole bunch in the middle that could be massaged either out of the project or changed so that it becomes more right than wrong, and we keep it.
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
also knew that it was never going to be done. We were always going to be building
yeah,
and
yeah.
getting rid of and adapting and changing. So it becomes play for us. The people that work there, building the
Mm-hmm.
playground, that's our play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You get to, as opposed to someone like me who comes in, works with communities, falls in love with the community, does a project, and then leaves. And then I'm like, oh, I miss the community. I miss how's that thing evolving? And here you get to live it every day, see the people using it, see how it evolves on its own, how you want to be a part of the evolution and change. And I think for so many people who have playgrounds or a child care center or a community center, it's like it's okay to be changing. It's okay to try things out and observe, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, certainly people with their classrooms, are doing that. They're setting things up and seeing how it works and changing things around. Sometimes playgrounds feel like they have to be like, this is permanent, and it's going to be the way it is forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's also part of the beauty of like the nature, connecting to nature, is
Yeah.
that it is all right. It's change. It's all change, and to be okay with that. The dreaming big, starting small, and then never stopping. That's what you're talking about. The not stopping.
Yeah.
Like, don't want to stop.
It's also important to keep in mind who's deciding this is perfect or this needs work. If it's an adult, I'm skeptical. If it's a kid,
Ah,
I listen.
yeah, yeah,
So, an adult will say, kind of messy. A kid goes, perfect,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like, all right, it's perfect.
Yep, yep. Yeah, and so some of the perfect messy things that I remember seeing there, multiple water shoots, multiple water play, water and sand, yeah, loose parts galore, where kids are really getting into it and damming and making floods and lakes and all sorts of stuff. And yeah, and that could push adults' buttons, or it could have adults remember, touch their own childhood or their own memories, or they don't, and they just say, oh wow, look how engaged the kids are.
Right.
We try to say keep it tidy at home, but look at this.
Yeah. And the other thing we did, which has changed our work, is with our offices for our team, there's three of us, myself, Zach, and Jenny.
Yes.
And Jenny is the play environments manager, and Zach is the Play System coordinator, and I'm the director of the Children at Play Network. But our offices were distant from the playground, not very distant, but we weren't on the playground.
Yeah.
And we're kind of office challenged at Bernheim anyway, because our staff has grown, but spaces for people is finite. So I said, well, let's just build a new place where we call it the trading post. The rationale is to have a place where we can store lots of loose parts and, you know, kind of, we built our offices there too. So now our offices are literally in the middle of a playground. So when we're
Yeah.
working, we're hearing screams and kids are knocking on our door and smearing mud on the window.
Yeah.
And that changes the way we work for the better. It puts us
Gosh.
in the
Yeah.
middle of play as we're working, as opposed to kind of nothing's very sterile at Bernheim, but a more sterile office environment. So,
That's right. Removed, like, oh, we're the designers, we're the administrators of this thing, we're over there. But the idea that here you are in the heart of it, and with your hearts in it, while everyone's experiencing it. Yeah, yeah, I love it. And so I got to experience that a bit because Bernheim was hosted. They did a day of hosting at the IPA USA, International Play Association USA conference last year. The national conference was in Louisville, and we got to be at Bernheim. So we all got to have the Bernheim experience. And I loved being in your office because it just felt like, oh, we're in it. You just gaze out the window and their children and families are getting into it all. And yeah,
yeah,
you feel like you're a part of it. Can I tell you another thing that I really loved? I had a really nice little experience there.
absolutely.
Yeah. You talk about how big Bernheim, that area is. The play ecosystem is, 17 acres. It's almost, you can't even picture what that is. And there are like dedicated play areas where there's lots going on, and there's places for adults to sit, and there's sand and there's water and all that kind of stuff. And then there's some bigger things, and then there's trails, but also like within, for our listeners, there's acres of just woods that is fenced in. And so it like allows parents to feel comfortable, like, oh wait, we can just, that's part of it too. Like, okay, there's the sand pit, but wait, we could just go in the woods. And so I love that idea of like, you're just inviting children and families to just have a nature experience if they want it. And so there was one time between sessions, I just kind of wandered and was checking it out. And, it's almost like you're climbing a mountain. And so I was like, okay, let's just check it out. And, it's different ecosystem. What similarities to upstate New York are there? What trees are different and the same? And then I saw something I'd never seen before. Well, yeah, I saw a box turtle just walking up the mountain right nearby where I was. Maybe I was sitting and suddenly I saw some movement, and it was a box turtle. And in upstate New York, most of the turtles are aquatic, and maybe box turtles go near water. But this was like just in the woods, very, very far away from water, or so that's me not knowing about box turtles. But there it was, and it was just like such a magical thing that I never experienced before. And it really, just that idea of like, I had that experience because you all thought, let's connect kids to nature, let's create a safe space where adults could feel comfortable, and then just explore. How often you just feel like, oh, I'm just going to explore. And so, for me to just have that experience of like wonder and wondering, like, wait, what is this? What am I seeing? Could this be real? Could this be true? And I got to kind of relive what might be from some of the
Yeah,
families and
so
children there.
we've intentionally developed across a spectrum of ecosystems.
Okay.
The first area we call the nature play area, and that's kind of designed human planned landscape. And we've got a lot in that area, and it's fenced because we have a lot of parents that appreciate a fenced in area, especially parents of children with autism. Then there's a second area that is we call the adventure play area, and it's more park-like. It's got pine trees and other hardwood trees and things, but they're spaced out and, not a lot of understory. It's kind of mowed and very
Mm-hmm.
park-like. And then that transitions into actually a very nice, about 11-acre area that we have put a fence all the way around, a nice big, it's actually a deer fence, so it's 8 feet high.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and that bounds that upper wooded area so that parents will feel more comfortable. Not all parents feel comfortable at all, even in
Yeah.
that first zone, that nature play zone.
Sure.
But what by having that spectrum that gets kind of manicured to park like to wild allows individuals that come to us many times. Some families come daily. The ones that live
Mm-hmm.
near us, some families come weekly. Some, come 4 or 5 times a year. Some have never seen it. That spectrum of ecology allows people to enter that natural world in a place where they feel most comfortable and then evolve their behavior and their comfort toward the wilder and wilder parts. And as you get into that wooded area, we don't provide anything. Things happen, like little building areas develop and trails start appearing, and some kid goes up there and claims territory and starts to build a fort and everything, just using the materials provided by nature. But that's the way I grew up playing. Go into the woods and make of it what you can. So what we do in that third zone where you found the turtle, the box turtle, eastern box turtle,
Eastern box turtle.
was is we let it evolve, and then we go up in there periodically, and we kind of observe the evidence of play so we can kind of tease out how we think it might be used, and then we support that, we scaffold that, or we deconstruct. So if some kid built essentially a deadfall trap, we would uh, probably scatter that.
Yes. Yes.
So we're looking for safety through our eyes. Mostly we just leave it alone. So that
Yeah.
area evolves on its own.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a slightly curated or barely curated, but still it does have, yeah, it has your eyeballs on it and seeing what's there. The people of Louisville and the surrounding areas have Bernheim, and people are being inspired by Bernheim to do their own nature play, even in room size asphalt areas. So you are having a big impact. And, I remember years ago, we were talking about Buckminster Fuller and his,
Lucky.
on Bucky, on his tombstone, the saying of call me Trim Tab.
Or it just says trim tab.
Trim Tab.
TRIMTAB.
So I think about that and the work that you do, the work that all of us are doing to try to make big change, but we do it in a small way. You want to tell us about that and just how you see your systems change in that kind of evolutionary terms as we, as life gets, you talked about kind of humans and agriculture and industry and playgrounds, and now we're in technology, and I feel like it could just be speeding up and going further and further and further with technology and engulfment of it. But we're talking about, okay, how do we want to steer the ship? We want to help balance that out, and how do you see all that?
Well, going back to the Buckminster Fuller, one of the things that I like reading is stories of people who have made some significant changes in the world. And
Yeah.
Buckminster Fuller had told this story to his students about the trim tab. On boats, rudders, and on airplane ailerons or whatever they're called, things that make the wings tilt or move or ships curve, on those bigger things that make things move quickly, there are very small little rudders within the rudders that are called trim tabs. So they might use the rudder to get the boat going on a curve,
Mm-hmm.
but then they use the trim tab to kind of make minute changes to that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can change the direction of an airplane or a boat just by moving the trim tab, the smallest kind of moving part that is used to steer or direct something. You don't need the whole rudder. You don't need the whole aileron. Given enough time, that little change to a little thing will move the entire ship in a whole new direction. And
Yes.
that caught my imagination. So it allows me to think that even the smallest things that I'm doing, if done well enough and kind of shared, have the possibility of major impact that I will never know, don't even need to know, don't care. But if we're taking care of the trim tab work, we're steering the ship in a whole new direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So every little shift matters
Yes,
that everybody's doing.
positive and negative. You
Ah.
know,
Uh-huh.
and so you're constantly having to make some judgment calls on, did I move the trim tab the right direction or not? But you don't have to change the whole system. In fact, if you change systems too dramatically, too quickly, the plane can crash, the boat can run aground. So it's actually that well-reasoned small work that I think has ultimately equal impact to really large gestures and the work of ego. So the other thing that trim tab work allows you to do is kind of surreptitiously change the direction of systems. No one's watching the trim tab work. Everyone's watching for the big movements. And so within those big movements, well-positioned trim tab work can actually have more survivability because it's under the radar. And I
Yes.
love working under the radar.
Yes. Me too. Me too. Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like our secret plan. Yeah. To make big change, but it's done, one mud kitchen at a time or one mud pie at a time or
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So, I mean, that can be encouraging for people who might feel alone in what they're doing, or they don't like the state of affairs or the way things are, or like have grief over kind of the changes of childhood and technology and time and all that. But this is saying that little things that people do can make a difference.
Yeah, and it also makes it affordable. So we have a common friend, Kim Tabler, who has a new early learning community that she started here in Louisville, and she has zero budget for a playground. And
Okay.
went over and chatted with her just a week ago, Friday, 1 week ago. And
Okay.
we looked at what the kids were already doing, and on a fairly flat lawn-like area, a little bitty hole had developed, and water was standing in it, and all the kids were playing in that hole. And so we just said, well, either add another hole or make that hole bigger. That's just, an afternoon
Yeah.
with some shovel work. Bring
Yeah.
in a stump, one stump if that's all you've got, five stumps and arrange them if you can, there's so much you can do with no budget, but a little bit of luck and effort. If you get the stumps in there, then talk to an arborist that you might have a relationship with and tell them, hey, next time you're cutting down a big oak tree, save a section of the oak tree, which is a branch that then wise out, and instead of hauling it off to a dump somewhere, haul it here.
That's
And,
right.
just do it one log, one stump, one hole at a time, and pretty soon you've got a pretty cool natural playground. No money.
Yeah. 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 Sometimes we feel like we want to make big impact and make big change, and from the adult eye, it feels like, oh, I'm not really doing that much if I'm just doing little things. But to the children, every little thing is big. Every little change is big.
Yep.
And even that idea, if we're talking about like societal change and tabbing, making incremental, small change that can ultimately change the whole thing. But that could be for individual people at childcare centers that don't have a natural playground, but they want to. You just start to introduce little things, and it starts like a trim tab. It also applies to everybody's circumstance. Like, you can make your place more natural, one log at a time, one shovelful of dirt at a time, sand at a time, planting a thing. So I like that too. Of like, okay, we can talk about trying to make big societal change by doing good stuff, but you can also do backyard change or cultural change with the play culture of a center or a school, recess, community center, by trying things, every individual.
It makes this work accessible to anyone.
I mean, because right now, how many people have outdoor play spaces? How many childcare centers? How many schools? How many, family backyards or neighborhoods? And, lots and lots.
Yeah. Now build networks between all of those people so that they're sharing ideas, sharing resources, encouraging each other, figuring out the workarounds for licensing or insurance or the adult things, the management, the maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
share contact for the arborist that brought you a log with someone else, all that
Yeah.
networking stuff builds a bigger movement.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like so much with all this and where we're at, or the way people, are kind of feeling with society, or our country, and people in their own camps again, and social media and information and all that. It's like putting that stuff aside and remembering, like, oh, we are all human. We all want to be happy. We want our children to be happy. And it's like, how do you move that stuff to the side? And it's still important, but still move it to the side and concentrate on like the stuff that we really believe in, and that we can share, no matter what, are you the blue team? Are you the red team? But we all want our children to be happy and grow healthy and strong and curious. And so I think these kind of things of like, yeah, connecting the dots, and through that you're building play stuff, but you're also building your community. You're also
Yep.
feeling like, oh, look, we have more connections, and I don't even know what their political beliefs are. It doesn't matter because we share other common things and humanity. So what are your dreams for, maybe we can, before we look at pictures, I'm excited to, just look at a few pictures here as a bonus slideshow. But what are you hopeful about, and what's your vision for the evolution of play and play work in North America? What you'd like to see happen?
Functionally, one of the things that I would like to see is a rework of the playground safety guidelines that have kind of taken a focus more toward manufactured equipment and rework them for natural playgrounds. I would also like some kind of helpful research to evolve that helps people understand how safe some of these natural play environments are, because a couple of the barriers that we run up against when we're trying to do these is licensing. I think that needs to change, which can be state by state. So I think there's some structural work where people can come together, and that's a great place for industry professionals, playground manufacturing industry, and kind of the nature playground thinkers to kind of come together and think about things. And then I think one of the other things that would be helpful is for there to be a rethink of how all of this work is connected to the universities that have early learning departments. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for some of those departments to kind of think about this evolving play landscape differently than they have in the past. I think there's some storytelling work that can be exciting to, it's already happening, but to get more people understanding the value of play and that it's the work of childhood and not kind of frivolous work, that this is where healthy child development takes place. So I think there's still a lot of really cool work to do and fun work and trim tab work, but also kind of big gesture work. And I think getting more and more people kind of interested in this as a way to think about their adult life. I never thought about this. I was an ecologist. It wasn't until a 17-year-old who's just over there working in her room came along that I started thinking about, okay, what is my role as an adult in a young person's life? So I think there's a lot of exciting work ahead. And then for me personally, I'm on a trajectory toward retirement from Bernheim. I'm 11 months away from that.
Oh my
But I
goodness.
want to kind of stay connected in this world of play. I don't know exactly how or how people might want me, but I want to
We
be
want you. We want you.
um, want me and pay me.
That's
So,
right.
but I think that, that's a fun thing to have time on my hand to explore this in a different
Wow.
way.
That's right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've done Trim Tab Plus. I feel like the rudder, the work that you've been doing for so long, and then all the people that you've touched, not only regionally, but all of us, nationally and internationally. Like, I feel like we're in your wake, and that we're working together. And yeah, it's always hopeful to see your vision and hear your vision and feel it and feel like, oh yeah, wait, no, there is something under the radar, under the headlines, that is happening. But it takes all of us, continuing and not getting discouraged, or, yeah, to feel hopeful, to feel like every little thing works.
yeah, this work is good antidote work,
And antidote to, it's like, what's the opposite of doom scrolling? It's like,
yeah, or
joyful.
screens or
Yeah. I was just hearing somebody about, like, talking about humans is like, now we're these creatures that just stare at our hands all day. And so you go outside, no matter where, look, people are staring at their hands. And, we want to help people stare at the world, or the sky, or the sand, or the puddle, and not stare, or, breathe in and be human, Homo Ludo, Homo ludens, and the playful part that we are, that is there. That even if technology is like, engulfing, and there is that pull and that draw, and there's this momentum beneath that, we are right. We evolved in nature, around nature. Like before our thumbs were scrolling, we were grabbing branches and we were digging and fishing and all that stuff. And so it's in there, and it feels like just all of us just like, how can we feed that? How can we, it's almost like remembering. It's almost like, and it's every generation too, like is being born, next generation born. But there is still, right, the thread of play in our DNA, in our genetic makeup to do that. And yeah.
One of my heroes, he's crazy as a loon and I love him, is Jim McCulloch, who he's out there with the kids in the woods doing that work. So I'd love to be an 8-year-old under his guidance out in the woods and where he is.
So. Adventure walking. Great. Well, Claude, there's a billion things to keep talking about, but why don't we close this down? And thank you for, giving us a little window to your world. And I will have, like, in show notes, Bernheim, links to Bernheim, and so people can see what you're up to and everything and follow along. And then,
well, when somebody watches this, if you want to come and visit Bernheim, please do and let us know. We'll play with you.
Yay. That's great. All right. Thanks, Claude.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for listening. Do you have a comment or a question? Email me at playnaturepodcast@gmail.com. I like talking about this stuff. And maybe we could use your question on a future podcast episode. As always, I have some free goodies for you in the show notes, including my outdoor loose parts guide. Fun stuff in there. And so I wish you the best in your outdoor play adventures. And when it comes to adding nature to your yard, or loose parts, or saying yes to risky play, my favorite motto is dream big, start small, and never stop. Oh yeah. Woo, 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 woo. Let's do it. All right. Have fun out there.